Hello everyone, welcome to Team 4's presentation on communication differences between different generations. Did you know that 1 out of 5 Americans are working past retirement? This is actually really interesting because as more and more young people are entering the workforce, more and more old people are staying in, and so for the first time in possibly history, up to 5 generations are working in the workplace at once, which can be really cool and awesome in terms of diversity and new points of view, but it can also lead to lots of different misunderstandings in communication and be the source of a lot of conflict. For instance, something that's meant to be said as a compliment could be taken disrespectfully, and so on. The point of this presentation is to help all the generations understand one another and how to resolve conflict between each other. Really just help with communication between them. Here's a quick overview of the presentation. First, we're going to introduce the generations, their workplace preference, what shaped them, their worldviews, who they are. Then we're going to talk about the rise of technology and how it's influenced communication between them. And then lastly, we're going to talk about strategies to reduce generational conflict. There's 4 main generations in the workforce today. We have baby boomers, which are 1946 to 1964. They were really shaped by the civil rights movement in Vietnam War. They tend to be workaholics and majority work past their retirement age. They're very competitive and they sacrifice for success. Generation X is 1965 to 1980. They were shaped by the fall of the Berlin Wall, but they have a better work-life balance than baby boomers. They have personal interest over the company, and they will leave if the company doesn't meet their needs, as opposed to baby boomers who are more loyal to their company. Then millennials, from 1981 to 1996, were shaped by 9/11 and the internet. They tend to be more open-minded, unlike Generation X. However, they do also value a work-life balance and will leave if the company doesn't meet their interests. Lastly, we have the youngest, Generation Z, born 1997 to 2010. They were born into a digital age, which made them more creative and individualistic. They like to be self-directed and independent, and they enjoy ever-changing environments. Here's a quick workplace preference overview. 50 to 70-year-olds, which are the baby boomers, they like more conservative work environments that have a hierarchy, a clear chain of command. They also like friendly, chatty environments, lots of face-to-face. Generation X they like more flexible and informal working environments, 41 to 55 years old. And millennials, 26 to 40 years old, are more collaborative and creative, diverse. They like those kind of work environments. Lastly, Generation Z, the youngest, 25 and down, they like more entrepreneurial and technology-centered environments. They also really value in-person, face-to-face chats because they're so rare in an age of technology.
Okay, the advancement of technology has impacted intergenerational communication in various aspects. A business should understand how development in technology will impact intergenerational communication. So I will assess how advances affect the intergenerational communication. The first impact is communication may become challenging, that older adults are not technologically savvy compared to younger generations. For instance, research done by Shannon Freeman and others in a journal article printed in 2020 found that a majority of elderly people have struggled with using new technology and had to ask the juniors to help them navigate the technologies, including the usage of social media, computers, and digital devices. The elderly struggled with understanding how to use the new technologies and often had to seek for assistance. The second aspect is changes in the language that is used by different generations. Elderly were unable to decipher the coded language. For instance, one of the communication challenges is through messaging through the phone, where it is common to use shortened messages, which was a finding that was arrived at by Stowers and Hummel in 2011, when they investigated how technology affected communication for the elderly. Such changes affected intergenerational communication as elderly were unable to decipher the coded language. Modern business have adopted a relaxed language. So the advancement in technology hampered international communication due to the changes in the various forms of communications used. The elderly struggled with understanding the acceptable forms of communication and needed to adapt to the technological changes to enhance their communication with their juniors.
In this section, I'll be discussing a few communication strategies that can be used to reduce generational conflict in the workplace. The first strategy is to define the roles and responsibilities well for workers of all generations, and this is to avoid any obvious communication lapses that may occur due to workers not knowing their exact roles and responsibilities. The next strategy is to consider time management skills, time management differences between various generations. Interestingly, different generations tend to have different ways of managing their time. For example, baby boomers tend to come into work early and stay late to finish their work. However, people from Generation Y commonly tend to try to finish a task at hand immediately to try to get home soon and have a better work-life balance. Another strategy is that millennials can coach older generations on technology. Older generations generally tend to have a harder time using technology since much of their life, they've gone much of their life without being in touch with cutting edge technology. However, most communication nowadays involves technology, such as email and social media. Millennials can play a larger role in coaching these older generations to bridge that lapse in communication that may occur. Another strategy would be that the company can have company policies to enforce appropriate dressing. So for example, encouraging employees to cover large tattoos. This would help create a more inclusive and comfortable environment for everyone involved because there's people from many different generations there, and it's important that everyone feels comfortable in their workplace. Another strategy to employ is to actually communicate these generational differences to the employees. And this would be very helpful because if the employees themselves actually understand the differences between each generation, if they're working with someone else on a team project from a different generation, they can try to use the knowledge of these differences to bridge the gaps in communication and avoid any potential conflicts. Last but not least, the final strategy I have listed here is to incorporate more team building activities. Team building activities will help increase cooperation and a feeling of togetherness and finding similarities for people even from different generations. This would definitely show itself in the quality of work since people would be able to work more comfortably with each other if they have had the opportunity to go through these team building activities.
Okay, some of our most frequently asked questions. I went ahead and compiled a list of 2 of these. Number 1 being, how will technology be beneficial in bridging the generational communication gap? Number 1, well, technology really is a universal language nowadays. It helps us seamlessly communicate, it gives us an easier lifestyle, and it keeps us all informed. This is really beneficial, especially for the baby boomers who didn't necessarily grow up with any of the technology. It was introduced fairly late into their life. So there has been what we call a digital divide in that. Whereas, say, myself and my classmates, I grew up on a computer. I remember being 2 years old and being on the computer. So that gives us a slight advantage whenever it comes to using technology. Social media, we really use that a lot for communication. I keep in touch with my relatives on there. It's an integrated smart home to help older generations with day-to-day tasks, and it eases that digital divide. It's not just for older generations. For example, I know a lot of people, you can walk into their homes nowadays and say, hey Google, or hey Alexa, hey Siri. There are a lot of products that are now in the smart home market that really put the simplest day-to-day task in the back of your mind. And push notifications on the daily news. It's very informative. Instead of having to walk all the way outside and get a newspaper, you can really just get anything from the tap of your phone now. And number 2, what is technology's impact on retirement? So I did a search on retirement on Forbes, and they said that the biggest impact of technology is how people use retirement savings, or how they go about saving for retirement. The new innovations really make it easy to track, invest, save, and have an easier lifestyle whenever it comes to retirement. People usually pick up maybe a second career, or really maximize their time at home with their kids, their grandkids, pets, etc. Okay, in conclusion, so we had the 4 main generations. Like I said, they all had very different levels of work ethic and communication. You have your baby boomers, Gen Z, millennials, and Gen X. Technology continues to pave our way of life and sculpt how we perform day-to-day activities, as simple as work, communicating with loved ones, using a smart home device. But it really is imperative that older generations do begin to adapt to technology and overcome that digital divide, especially as they get closer to retirement age. It's proven to just be seamless. Helps everything go so much smoother. Thank you.